Hello, my fantastical friends. It's time once more for a story. A fantastic Neckbeard story. From Reddit user Cardinal Cherry, and this is also from the Neckbeard Story subreddit. This is My Neckbeard Ex Had a Traditional Wife Fetish. See, considering what I know, due to all the things we've talked about on stream and some of the books that I've been reviewing lately, oh yeah, I think I know where this is gonna go, and I'm already uncomfortable. Let's see what we're gonna do here, guys. Here we go. I'm not exactly sure where to even start with this roller coaster of a story. This happened a few years ago when I decided to go to Canada on a one-year college adventure. Not only was it my first time traveling alone, but it was the best experience for me to learn French. Now, I must say that I have no clue of the day-to-day life from the US, so it was a bit of a culture shock when I first arrived at the border. I would say it was unfortunate because my credentials weren't up to date, or straight up couldn't be found, so I was stuck at the border for a little while. This is where I met this neckbeard. Let's call him A. A and I met in one of those airport cafes, and we surprisingly hit it off pretty well. He seemed like a smart and responsible young adult, totally not what you'd expect from a neckbeard, aside from the miladying part. He did that thing. God, did he say it out loud? Upon hearing my situation, he proposed that I could stay with him. "I got an extra room, you won't need to pay for a hotel," he said. Now, I thank my paranoid mother for drilling fear of any type of human interaction, because that moment I felt that there was something just off about A. I wasn't sure what it was, but I refused his offer. He was a little older than me, and I just wasn't comfortable living alone with a guy, a stranger, for any amount of time. I stayed in the hotel for a couple of nights, and A kept me company most of the time, showing me around places near the border. He still brought up the idea of staying with him every so often, but I kept brushing him off. He started to get very persistent the more we waited, saying how nice his house is, and that he lived very close to the airport, etc. Just about anything to try and convince me to stay at his place. I never backed down. Finally, when I was indeed able to pass the border, I thought that would be the last I'd see of A, but some dumb part of me gave this man my phone number and promised to meet up with him at another time. This eventually led from him to push a relationship with me. Now, I still felt off about A, but over the months of my stay in Canada, I'd grown to know the guy, so I figured, well, why not? It's just a basic, short relationship, and once I go back home, that'll be the end of it, right? This is posted on Neckbeard Stories, so nothing ever goes smoothly. I learned very quickly that A had certain tastes. He liked me best when I'm wearing dresses and heels, would turn up his nose when I'm wearing sweatpants and boy clothing. He wanted me to wear his gifts, girly things only, liked to watch me cook and clean my dorm. He didn't help, but he liked to watch. That's really creepy. He liked me better when I put on pop music instead of my usual rock, and quickly made it clear that my nerdy taste in anime and video games, comics, that just was not his cup of tea. But that doesn't include him, of course, because he gets to like anime, video games, and comics. Just not me. Once we had a fight about this, and I hurt his feelings by saying his favorite anime sucked. I still don't regret it. There were moments where he tried to teach me to be a better cook so I can make him better meals, how to clean better, how to walk and talk and even smile around his friends. Oh god. Oh fuck, here we go. So the relationship was going great. He was especially disgusted at my pagan and witchcraft interests, something that I truly identify with myself, and hearing him call me a weirdo and other hurtful things really brought my trust in him practically down to a zero. Totally understandable. Still, for some unknown reason, I remained with him while walking on eggshells. Breaking my confidence must have been part of his plan, because as soon as I stopped being so vocal about my interests, he started to praise me for being so obedient, nice and caring, and worst of all, wife material. How much you want to bet this guy is a fan of all those like trad wife blogs and shit? How much you want to bet this dude has read like Debbie Pearl's book and shit? Oh. It was like he was checking off some checklist. Oh, honey, he was. Who the fuck was this guy? The guy from the airport was decent, but this man I was dating treated me like some sort of China doll that he obsessed over. This isn't without mentioning the jealousy if men so much looked in my general direction, not letting me do any kind of heavy lifting, expecting me to be available at any beck and call, like some kind of canary. I've never heard it put like that before. Even his friends seemed aware of his excessive behavior and said that I wasn't the first person he had done this to. No, I imagine you're not. But I was sick of it. I wanted to go home, and I never wanted to be near this man again. Sadly, it gets worse. I'm very close to my family. It's a very cultural thing, so the culture shock of A telling me he hasn't called his parents mom and dad in years and had moved away at 18 and was totally an independent person. I guess it's that easy when you live in your dad's summer home, living the American dream, I guess, right? Whatever. This means I received many texts and calls from my parents, something that A found weird, and like the rest of my existence. But he was shocked above all that my parents didn't look like me. My whole family is very dark-skinned. I was born extremely pale, so anyone that doesn't know me wouldn't know that. A threw a fit. Why didn't you tell me your family was black? I was confused. My hometown is very diverse, and I didn't see the issue with mentioning my family's ethnicity. He always knew that I was a foreigner, so I didn't think he had an issue with it. I mean, I didn't think you'd care. You know I'm not from here. Are you adopted? At this point, I'm getting agitated. It's been months of this questioning. I'm tired, my self-worth is non-existent, and the last thing I need is him making me feel more and more like an alien. No, why would you think that? No reason. You're perfect, but your family. My family is what? Well, I just don't want our children to have their genes. Excuse me? Children? This man, honest to God, thought I wanted to spend 1 second in his bed and have his children. A and I never had sex during my stay. He'd pushed the idea, but I never gave in. A, I'm 19. I have a whole life ahead of me. I don't want your children. He did not take that well. We continued to scream for a while between his expectations of what I should be to him and my own ambitions. It almost got so bad that the student next to me knocked on the door to check on us. I soon kicked A out, and I never saw him again. At least, until the very end of the year. A was being extremely quiet, something that was never normal, and it was honestly freaking me out. While I was getting ready to leave and finally go home, I get a call from A's best friend. We'll just call him B. B was also a decent guy. I could say we're friends for the time that I dated A, but he is also well aware of my hate for A at this point. So much so that he strictly told A that I hated him. I assumed he was going on my side out of pity, maybe knowing this wasn't the first time A has had trouble with women. Go figure. So I tell him everything that happened, how A's been treating me with this weird obsession, being the perfect wife, and his issues with my family's ethnicity. Not me, of course. I have the perfect skin tone, so it's okay. Yeah, he said that. Wow, that's fucking horrible. And I told him I would be leaving just to pass the message. I'm done with him. I wanted nothing to do with A. If he was being a coward somewhere, it's not my issue. I had my plane ticket, and I wouldn't have to go anywhere near him ever again. But it was too good to be true, because A appeared at the airport. What the hell are you doing here? I asked. I'm here to pick you up. My blood ran cold. Pick me up? What for? I'm going home. He starts to get aggressive very quickly, and it honestly did scare me. I had refused most of the advances that A made towards me, and thankfully he wasn't forceful with his intimidating height. He's like 6'4" compared to me, and I'm 5'2". But this time he seemed to get sick of my resistance. Something that thankfully never broke for me. Listen to me. You're going to stop this nonsense already, and you're going to get in my car and go back home with me. I truly felt like crying. I had a feeling that if I step into that forsaken summer house of his, I would never leave again. I am not going anywhere with you. Leave me alone, A. And I ran. Yeah, it might have been childish, but I was scared, and I'm tiny. I can hide pretty easily in a crowd, so A lost sight of me fairly quickly. The bastard had the audacity to stay in the airport until my flight was called, and finally, I was headed home. I remember crying on the plane, and once I arrived back home, I was terrified of seeing him there waiting for me. Thankfully, I don't think he followed me. I remained paranoid for months after this happened, and I truly think that he would have gone after me if he knew where I lived. He never bothered to learn anything about my hometown. After months of nothing, I could finally breathe. I'm definitely not going back to Canada. Thank you for reading. I didn't add any of these to the story, but I thought I should add these because they're just that ridiculous. A made it very clear that I should sit a certain way when we were out for dinner. He always compared me to his ex, saying she cheated on him for someone better. And now that I think about it, I don't blame her. Cheating is still bad, but dealing with A is a fucking nightmare. He constantly judged my looks, and almost always liked to choose my clothing, and even tried to throw away some of them. A really liked the color gray, and convinced me once to change my hair from red to gray. It completely fried my hair, and I had to get a pixie cut soon after the breakup. Whenever I acted out of line, he would always talk in a patronizing way, how I shouldn't scream at him because it made me look crazy, and it was simply not how a woman should act. He pretty much blamed me for any inconveniences, even when he had no money, and said I was too high maintenance. I didn't want his stupid gifts. One time I bought a gift from my hometown, and he completely judged the hell out of it because the packaging had a little bit of sand on it. I had this idea that I lived in poverty because it's not the US. I don't know. So the sand thing just made the gift look cheap to him. Okay, so the worst part about this, and honestly just the way that this was titled, I just have to say that, like, I know what this is. I'm so sorry, first off, Cardinal Cherry, that you had to go through all this. That's... oh boy. That's pretty rough. But no, I know this mentality. This is some straight up, like, that whole trad wife thing. It's not always religious. It does have a fairly large religious component in certain places. But a lot of it also comes from the incel community. Incels really, really latched onto the whole trad wife thing because traditional wives are supposed to be submissive to their husbands and never ever argue with them, and they just do anything for their man. And considering the, book that I'm reviewing on this channel, the kind of thing that, like, Debbie Pearl and people like that very much think is the greatest thing ever for women to be. They've written entire books about how you're supposed to behave as a woman. You're not supposed to have autonomy. You're not supposed to have emotions that are not specifically designed to please the husband. Yeah, that kind of horrible garbage. And considering the way that this guy acted, I would say that he believes that kind of crap. I would say that he's definitely one of those people who thinks that, the woman should just be his ever-patient servant. Especially this idea of having his children and things like that. Oh yeah, he really was hardcore in the whole trad wife thing. That's the other part, like specifically the interest thing, that kind of pushed me over the edge with a lot of this. See, people who believe a lot of this, who believe the whole, traditional wives and all that kind of stuff, you're not supposed to, as a woman, have interests that are not feminine, because that's just not okay. You can't be into these things like video games and comics and anime and all these things, because those are masculine things. You're not supposed to like those because you're a girl, and girls only like feminine things. And I swear to God, this is how they think. This is like, these are grown adults who think this way too. That's really the most fucked up weird part about it. It is 100% yes, that is a thing. So, this is like a weird insight into the mind of somebody who actually does think like this. And it's not that surprising to me that he's, living off of his parents' money, even though he likes to talk about how he's, the proper husband and needs a proper wife and things like that. It's like, yeah, A lot of these guys are usually mooches. A lot of them like to say that they need things a certain way and demand the whole trad wife thing, but, you know, they're not actually doing that great for themselves anyway. It's just, you don't get to judge him because he's a man, and women don't judge. They can only do what the man says and shit like that. Again, I am so sorry that you had to deal with this dude, but I'm so glad you're out of there. I'm willing to bet that he won't try to contact you or anything like that. I can't say for certain, but I can kind of extrapolate and push this whole idea, because if you were willing to just leave instead of listening to him and being like, oh, you have to get in the car, go home with me now, you're not traditional wife material, and he'll just spend all of his days lamenting the fact that, you know, oh, he couldn't get a proper trad wife, and he'll just post on forums and shit like that. I'm sure he does. I'm sure he probably is one of those people. Honestly, the whole trad wife thing disgusts me. It's just, wow. That's the way life is supposed to be, huh? Well, fuck that shit. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this story. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, share videos, all that good stuff. I have a Ko-Fi, which has another incredibly stupid goal on it. You should go check it out. I have a merch store, and I'm adding new merch to that all the time, so you should check that out too. Also, there's a live stream every Saturday, and I have a Discord. The links to all these things are in the drop-down box below this video and every video. There's also an address if you want to send me weird stuff in the mail. I'll open it in a video. That's a thing I do. I don't know why. It's just a rule. Anyway, I love you all so very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye, everybody.